You're listening to Beyond the Plate with Andrew Kaplan. This sounds so weird. You're listening to Beyond the Plate with Cappy.
When the hurricanes happened in Houston and in Florida not long ago, I walked into Dad's office and I said, Dad, can we do something? Without missing a beat, my dad said, let's send him some bread.
Hey everyone, this is Cappy, and you're listening to Beyond the Plate, a podcast where I sit down in person with the world's culinary elite to explore their journey into the industry and the social impact they have made in their community. Every episode, we share inspiring stories of what it means to be in today's hospitality industry. You can find me and keep up to date with this podcast across all social media platforms at On Cappy's Plate or go to BeyondThePlatePodcast.com. We are on Twitter and Facebook at BT Plate Podcast. All right, here's what's going down this week. It's another Fifth Wednesday episode. Consider this a bonus episode, if you will. We started Beyond the Plate because we know there's more to a chef or a company, in this case, than the food you eat in the restaurant. What you may not know is that in addition to creating delicious meals, chefs and companies, such as the one we're talking with today, are prioritizing social impact, and each does it in their own way. Now, what gets me most excited about being part of the food industry in general are the people that make it up. They're some of the most generous and thoughtful, compassionate people, and here's why. If you listen to this podcast, you heard in season 1 from people like Rachel Ray and Andrew Zimmern, Rocco Desperado, Alice Waters, Eric Repair, Gail Simmons, Jose Andres. I could go on and on and on about the good they do in their community and beyond. And in season 2, this season that we're currently in, we heard from people like Giada De Laurentiis and Robert Irvine and Guy Fieri and on and on and on. But it's because of these people's successes that they've been able to share the stories on the projects that they care about. And there's also plenty of organizations and brands who do their part, and one happens to be our presenting sponsor for season 2 of Beyond the Plate. It's Martin's Famous Potato Rolls. Now, we made a commitment to ourselves, the Beyond the Plate team, that if we partnered with a brand to sponsor, we want them to have, at the very least, a strong mission or to have made a strong social impact in their community. So here's the plan. As you know, we release our episodes every Wednesday, and we've only had a couple months that have a fifth Wednesday in the month, and this happens to be one of them. If you've listened to the podcast this season, you've heard me talk about Martin's Famous Potato Rolls plenty. I love them. For this episode, we caught up with Julie Martin of Martin's Famous Pastry Shop fame and social media manager for Martin's Famous Potato Rolls. We get to hear some fascinating history about this family-owned and run bakery, about their loyal following, how they have grown, and along with that, what's next for them and how they innovate, and of course, how they give back to their community and beyond. Trust me, please listen to this episode in its entirety because this family's commitment and dedication to their staff and the community is incredibly generous. Blew me away. I'm going to stop here, but please enjoy this conversation as we go beyond the plate for this fifth Wednesday with Julie Martin of Martin's Famous Potato Rolls. Just kicking it off here with the first question, I want to dive into the history of Martin's, which I've touched upon briefly in some of the, ad reads that we've done on the episodes, but you all literally took this company that was started in a garage to a full-fledged factory and shipping nationwide or worldwide. So explain how that came to be.
My grandma and grandpa started making Martin's potato rolls and a host of other products in their garage in 1955. And it was literally like a one-car garage. It was really small. And they would, bake all week long, and then they would go to farmers markets on the weekends. And as their products grew in popularity and people started telling their friends about them, they were able to expand into a couple different farmers markets. And then eventually they got kind of a brick and mortar location that they had a bakery in the back and then sort of a restaurant in the front because, if you're making donuts and then also, buns and things, next thing people they want to have coffee with their donut or they want to have a burger in their sandwich. So, it kind of made sense to start a little restaurant and have a bakery in the back. And then as that expanded, started realizing what we did best was the bread and the rolls, especially the potato bread and the potato rolls. And we closed the restaurant in 1987 And ever since then, we've been just focusing on our bread products and what we do best. And yeah, we have, as you said, expanded to, we now have 2 bakeries, one in Pennsylvania and one in Georgia. And we're fresh in stores on the East Coast from Maine to South Florida, and then out as far as Chicago. And then for food service, we go worldwide. So we're in 20 some different countries around the world now. So a lot of expansion.
That's amazing. What year did they start selling at farmers markets?
They started in 1955.
Do you all ever get the itch to open a little restaurant or cafe or no more?
It's funny. Of course, my parents and my siblings and I remember the restaurant. And we do kind of get nostalgic for it. And we all talk about, little part of our bakery complex, we should open a snack bar or a little burger concept or something using our rolls. And then we all look at each other and say, yeah, who wants to manage it? And then it kind of dies there. But, never know. Maybe someday.
Was like a potato roll or potato bread always one of the initial products?
Yeah, it was. The very first product they started making was a cloverleaf potato roll. It's kind of like a dinner roll, with sort of 3 parts. It was really popular in the 50s especially. And that shape. Now, the potato roll part of it was from my great-grandparents and sort of some great-aunts and various changes to the recipe kind of thing. But like, for example, they used to make potato rolls were white. And my grandparents figured out that at farmers markets, if they would sell a white potato roll versus a yellow potato roll, the yellow one would outsell the white one 2-1.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I guess it's that we see it, we think, automatically think, kind of buttery. And so, yeah, early on, they started, innovating and figuring out, what people wanted to buy and then, making it the best they could.
What makes the color yellow, if you can share this secret?
Yeah. Yeah, this one I can share. Back then, they just, used food coloring. And then, as we, we always continue to try to make the tastiest, but also the most healthful product we can. And so, a few years ago, they came out with some studies that, food coloring is something you should cut back on or not have. And so now actually our products are all colored with turmeric and annatto, which are 2 spices, food substances that have been used, plant-based, that have been used for hundreds of years. And now they're still that same signature color, but now they don't have any artificial colors or no artificial sweeteners either.
Interesting. So let's set the record straight for some people. What is a potato roll versus just a standard regular bread roll?
Yeah. It actually kind of has an interesting background. A lot of different, if you do some research into potato rolls, everybody wants to claim that they were sort of the first country or first area of the world to make them. But it actually came about because sometimes wheat prices are fairly expensive depending on the crops. And so people were looking for ways of stretching the wheat. And so potatoes usually seem like they're cheap whenever wheat is expensive. So they would make like mashed potatoes and mix it in with the dough to make the wheat stretch. But what they found out and what my grandparents perfected was the fact that when you add potato to the flour, it actually makes the finished product stay moist, stay soft. It adds some trace minerals and some natural sweetness so you don't have to add a bunch of extra sugar.
In what form is that added?
Well, my grandma and grandpa, when they first started, they actually literally would make mashed potatoes.
Really?
And fold them into the dough. But as we've, gotten more and more mechanized, we have discovered that if we get them in, we get it in it's a dehydrated potato form. It's called potato flour, but it's dehydrated potatoes. And then we rehydrate. We use, our top 3 ingredients are high protein wheat flour, milk, and potatoes. And so we have found that you can actually mix it up with the other dry ingredients and then kind of rehydrate kind of all together. So it saves us a step from having to, we don't any longer get in, potatoes and have to peel them and, inspect all the potatoes and that kind of thing. We leave that to the potato professionals. And now we get them in a dehydrated form. Yep.
That's so interesting. Okay, that was so many question 1s, but I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
Question 2, if not already, I'd say you all are well on your way to becoming a household name because you all have somewhat of a cult following. me being one of those cult followers.
Yeah.
Was
I
there
love that.
was there a moment you all realized that you had made it? You know, I talk to chefs and I say, is there a moment you realize you made it as a chef, whether it was a review or someone coming to eat at their restaurant or a dish being written about? So for you all as a bakery and starting as a garage and going to farmers markets and having a little cafe, was it when you realized you needed to build a mechanized system, or when you opened your second bakery, or is there a certain moment?
You know, it's funny. I think that there are lots of small moments, like you said, you named, several where we had to expand from the garage into the restaurant, when we went from a restaurant into a commercial bakery. But I think one of the really coolest moments where we kind of, as a family, were like, that's cool, was my grandma, who has passed away about 5 years ago now. But before she passed away, I was chatting with her, and I showed her a picture of Michelle Obama eating a Shake Shack burger, which, of course, is on a Martin's potato roll. And I said, Grandma, did you ever think that the First Lady of the United States would be eating your bun? And, Grandma just chuckled and shook her head, and she was like, we were just trying to feed our family, and to see that was a moment where we went, wow, something really great has happened here.
That's incredible. That's a great segue to my next question, question 3, in growth for the company. So I've reached out. We've known each other for quite some time because you all have been involved in some of the burger bashes at the wine and food festivals in Miami and New York. And I reached out to you when we were doing an event in Austin during South by Southwest. And I think this was before you all had really nailed down your shipping protocol and procedures. And again, various food festivals. But then, as you just mentioned, Shake Shack starts using them, which is now this, tons of locations across, was it over 100 locations, well over 100 locations across the world. Do you recall, or can you tell us about that first phone call from Shake Shack?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We get lots of inquiries by, of course, Danny Meyer started at Shake Shack with a hot dog cart. We have a lot of small, mom and pop shops, a lot of, one-time startups kind of thing. And you never know when you first get, started with somebody, if they're going to be the next big thing. So we always try to treat everybody as if they're important. So, when they started using it, we were excited and they started expanding. We're like, wow, this is great. It's interesting. We were actually the #1 selling burger bun in America before Shake Shack started using us.
Really?
But that was kind of pre-social media.
Yeah.
And so people were buying us without necessarily knowing our name. They more knew the look, they knew the packaging, that kind of thing. And then, with Shake Shack's popularity, with them openly using and, admitting that we're their role, as well as, lots of other food service chains and local popular restaurants using it. That's really, becoming a larger and larger part of what we do. But, the largest part of our business is still retail. It's still those customers in the grocery store. But we have definitely seen a larger increase internationally, in large part due to Shake Shack and people like that taking their restaurants overseas and then, of course, taking us with them, which is great.
It's so interesting because, I know you're big in retail. I see you on shelves and I, see different high-end restaurants that have a burger on their menu using you and then, like you said, chains. But you have this product that I'm so drawn to. I'm digressing. That I'm so drawn to that if you were like, hey, Cappy, so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so uses our buns too, I'd probably be at those places in the near future because I knew they were on your bun. I think that's like a neat loyalist following that you have.
Yeah, people are starting to do that. Their restaurants they go back and forth between some of them wanting to put our logo out there so that people know they're using a good quality product. And you have that but then you have a few places, like there was a restaurant in another country who was importing our rolls. And I actually saw he was keeping it under wraps because he didn't want anyone else in that country to import our rolls. Because he was like, it's the secret. It's my trade secret. He would even go so far as to take our buns out of the packaging when it would arrive and not even let his employees see the packaging.
That's like KFC, secret spice blend for their
Yeah.
dredging almost.
Yeah, exactly. So it is interesting because you have both opposite ends of the spectrum. You have some people proudly touting that they, use our rolls knowing that it will be a drawing point. And you have other people saying, oh, no, it's my trade secret. I don't want people to know that these aren't something I whipped up in the back.
How many different countries are you all shipping to?
It varies, and we don't always know because we use some distributors, but it's somewhere around 25.
Give us some fun facts or figures that listeners would love to hear, if you can, in terms of like Shake Shack. I know you're shipping to some other countries for them, or just in general, if you don't want to pinpoint to one brand.
Yeah, I think it's so fun that we are in such diverse places around the world. You think there are regional specialties, but we're shipping to Moscow, Russia, and we're shipping to Saudi Arabia and London, England, and Australia, and Canada, and just this past week at the National Restaurant Association show, we had a ton of people from Colombia and Brazil coming up and asking how they can get our products, and so that is, I think, really, really cool, especially since, kind of fun fact, like you mentioned, when my grandparents started making rolls, it would take about 2 hours to make 24 rolls. And these days we make, somewhere around 350 rolls a minute. So, it has expanded, in a large way, both here in this country and then around the world. And in fact, I handle our social media, and every week we get requests from new countries. Like last week it was Norway and Spain and somewhere else where they were requesting our rolls. And so it's really interesting to see. And then, of course, I ask, how in the world did you hear about us in Norway?
How incredible. That's such a neat thing. You must sit back and realize the family started, run business. Do you guys still think of yourself as this like small family run bakery?
We do. And really, compared to, the competitors, we're still so small. They're 10 times bigger than we are. And so we kind of feel like it's a David and Goliath story where, we are so much smaller. And yet the customers, the loyalty that we have among our customers has made us number one. And it's a phenomenal. We feel so blessed and honored. We get messages all the time, just these people who, say when they have our rolls, it reminds them of grandma's house, or they feel good about eating them and serving them to their kids, and they think about fun family times and cookouts. And that's so great that our family is a part of helping other families, celebrate good times together. It's just special,
Yeah, for sure. So into question 4, I want to talk about what's next for Martin's Famous Potato Rolls. And you mentioned innovation a few minutes back. I feel like you all have had a lot of innovation, but how do you innovate or evolve, or even do you need to, or stay relevant, or do you need to stay relevant?
You can never, anything that's, staying still, as you always say, you're either growing or you're dying. And so we're always looking to innovate, and in so many ways, both in process and in product. So as we innovate in process, we go to international baking shows and equipment, go see equipment manufacturers and things like that to see if there's something we can do that will make us more efficient so that we can keep our prices, at a reasonable place and also pay our employees well. And so, so our process, we're always examining our process as well as our product. I mentioned about the difference in, changing from food coloring to a natural way of coloring, keeping our rolls looking the same. And, we're always looking at, scientific studies and ingredients and what would make our rolls most healthful and most nourishing, and as well as, making changes, if the customers want something different. So, we're a non-GMO product now. All of our products are non-GMO because that was a customer, that was something that actually we needed to do to go into Turkey. And then we thought, well, let's just go ahead and do that across the board. Yeah, and as we get requests from different restaurants, like, for example, we went to a restaurant show in Texas, and we had just come out with our 4-inch sized sandwich potato roll, and that was the biggest we made at the time. And they, as restaurants would come up and talk to us, they would say, yeah, we serve our kids burger on a 4-inch. And they wanted a 5-inch. So, we now serve a 5-inch have that available for restaurants. So, as people come to us with requests and as we see, potential changes, we always try to, stay on that cutting edge of what is the best ingredients, what's the best thing we can use. It's going to make it taste good and something we want to serve to our own kids, So, that being said, we are also, we also try out different new things. My brother is our VP of bakery operations, and he also is a master baker. So he's always
Really?
he's always trying new things. Like the
How do
cinnamon
I get on his list?
I know, right? When he invites us to try something new, we all line up because he's always trying new things. And like, for example, the cinnamon raisin swirl bread that we came out with just a couple years ago, he worked on that for several years, different kinds of cinnamon, different kinds of raisins, more swirl, less swirl. And, we try not to come out with a product until we're sure it's better than anything else that's out there. So you may see some new things from us in the future. The butter bread, I don't know if you've tried that yet, but our real butter bread was something we came out with. We've had requests for years for a white bread, but we, tout the healthiness of our other breads and thought, well, why would we come out with a white bread? Well, we, try to figure out what we could do to give people that nostalgic white bread taste, but also have it be healthier than normal white bread. So we've used basically a very similar dough to our hoagie roll. And so we use the high protein wheat flour, and we still use real milk in there, and actually just switched the oil to all butter, which our other products use sunflower oil and butter. And then for the butter bread, to give it that extra kick of buttery taste, we actually used all butter. And that was actually the number one newly introduced product in the bakery industry last year.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like you all in Shake Shack are kind of cut from the same cloth when you talk about it took 2 years for your brother to develop the cinnamon raisin swirl bread because, we had Mark Rosati, the culinary director of Shake Shack, on the podcast in episode 5. And I know it took him at least a couple of years to develop their fried chicken sandwich. I tell you, it was worth it.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. You talk about going from yellow food coloring to things like turmeric or annatto. And are these aren't overnight things. I know people look at these bigger companies and going from a 4-inch to a 5-inch roll for someone, or changing the yellow, or, going non-GMO. These are things sometimes, like you say, people are working on for months or years. That must be a huge undertaking, no?
Yeah, it really can be. It's not something you can turn around and change quickly. Like, even just changing the size of the rolls, we need to get new pans. And that's a big expenditure. You get new pans, or for example, we recently started offering a top slice hot dog roll for, say, lobster rolls, things like that, for food service. And everything else we have is sliced sideways. So that's an equipment thing of, can we turn the blades? How do we make that work? And then, and then making sure that once you do make those changes, that you've got a quality control so that it's, doing what it's supposed to do and all that. So yeah, there's always, like I said, that's why we really try to stay on the cutting edge of what's happening next, so that we have a little bit of, to make those adjustments, whether that's an ingredient adjustment or equipment or even staffing, because as we add more robotics, we're thrilled to offer so many good American jobs. And so, people worry about computers and robotics taking jobs away from humans. But, we still need people in there to work those machines and all that. So a big, I think one of my favorite things that we do is really just trying to offer good jobs for people to feed their families. And, we have multiple generations of employees and their coworkers who work alongside us, who's, some of them worked alongside my dad, and now their kids work alongside of my siblings and I, and, have next generation coming up and starting to work as they get out of high school and college. And any kind of change is going to be a process when you're a company our size. But yeah, we try to, like I said, stay on the cutting edge so that in the forefront, so we have a little bit of time to figure things out as we make changes.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Going into question 5 here, we'll wind it down with social impact and giving back, because as I'm sure you've heard in our ad reads, I like to focus on that for partners of ours, sponsors of ours, and you all do that, I feel like, in a really big way. You've touched on your staff and your employees, which is, I love that you did that, because I think that's incredibly important for any business. But do you wake up in the morning thinking about making and selling rolls, or are you waking up thinking about how to make the world a better place?
I think those two things are tied together in our case. I thought it was really cool. I'll start with this. My grandma and grandpa started out the company right off the bat with an idea of giving back. And when I helped to go through my grandma's things when she passed away, in the basement we found all the financial ledgers from 1955 until they went onto the computer. And in going through those, I thought was so interesting. The very first page in every financial ledger was charitable giving. And I thought, that really started us off on the path towards, we want to make the best product and we want to make some profit. But the reason we need to make profit is so we continue with those jobs and so we can continue to make the world around us a better place, not just in our company, not just in our working environment, but around us. And so, my dad has continued that tradition. We give between 10 and 20% of our profits to charities, all kinds of things from after school programs to helping single moms to disaster relief worldwide and domestically. And for example, my dad, when the hurricanes happened in Houston and then shortly after that in Florida, not long ago, I walked into my dad's office. I had just seen the news and saw all the people in Houston, how many people were displaced. And I walked into Dad's office and I said, Dad, can we do something? And without missing a beat, I'm so blessed by this. Without missing a beat, my dad said, let's send them some bread. And I said, can we? We're not in that market. Can we send them bread? And he said, sure, why not? He said, let's send them, a couple tractor and trailer loads full. So we did. We sent them 2 tractor and trailer loads full. It's like 50,000 loaves of bread. And just sent them there and were able to have them, dispensed out to the shelters and the people who were displaced. And it just, I thought, and this is why I want to work here. This is why I want to be part of this, because that's the attitude. If we can help, we will. We want to. And so, that wasn't. We're not in that market. We weren't, necessarily trying to make customers. We were just trying to do something for, our fellow humans, And so, that is actually, that's why I came back to Martin's. My mom and dad actually encouraged us all. There's 4 of us kids in my generation, and they encouraged us all to go work elsewhere. And then if we got excited about, Martin's and had something to offer, experience and all that, we could come back. And the reason I came back, in large part, was because of what we can do together. So much more I can do with my family and with our company to help others. So yeah, we try to make the best bread we can, but we try to make it more than that. And we remind our employees all the time, it's not just about making bread. It's about creating these family community experiences with our bread and because of our bread,
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's incredible. Makes me love you all even more.
Thanks.
All right, you're getting a bonus. Just because of that, you're getting a bonus question.
Okay.
Julie Martin is stranded on a deserted island. Which one Martin's product is she taking with her?
Boy, it depends on the day, but if I'm stranded in one day, I got to go with the sandwich roll because I do everything with that product, and maybe it's because I grew up with it, but I know a lot of people use bread, and sometimes I do too, and I really love our new butter bread and our whole grain too, which a lot of people haven't tried yet. But, I feel like our sandwich roll, I've done everything with it from, we're making hot dogs and I don't have a hot dog bun. Well, somehow, cut the hot dog in half and put it in there. We do, peanut butter and honey. We do fluffernutter sandwiches with it. You can even grill it. You can turn it inside out and do a grilled cheese. You can do like a mini panini on it. I eat it plain, just toasted with little butter or like cinnamon sugar. I feel like it's so versatile that, if I had to pick one, that would be hard though, because week to week I buy a different product. because I get excited about our hoagie rolls. And then next week I'm excited about our party rolls because they're so cute. And but if you were really nailing me down, I had to choose one. It would probably be the sandwich roll.
Yeah, that is delicious. And you all call it a sandwich roll, but that's what like Shake Shack puts their burgers on, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's funny. We do call that the sandwich roll, and we call our hot dog roll our long roll.
Yeah.
Because we don't want people just to think of it as a burger roll, although that's mostly what people think of it as. But we do every kind of sandwich on it.
Sure.
It just fits right in your hand, and with that hinge, kind of keeps everything in the backside. It doesn't all fall out, and I just think it's perfect for sandwiches. But yeah. When I call the sandwich roll, I am referring to what a lot of people would consider our burger bun.
Yeah. And you just shared some great tips and options to use it, which I definitely will be using some of those. But is there like a favorite or unexpected way that you enjoy that product or even another product?
Well, let me give you two. It's hard to nail down one, and like I said, it depends on when you ask me. But this week, actually, when I was in Chicago, I now have a new favorite. When I was in Chicago this week, I had a fried green tomato sandwich with our sandwich roll, and I had never even considered doing something like that. Usually when people think of a veggie burger, they think of a more traditional veggie burger, a black bean burger, a shroom burger, something like that. But this restaurant did a fried green tomato with avocado and arugula and like a spicy mayo, and it was phenomenal. That's my new favorite.
That sounds delicious.
It was phenomenal. And then maybe the other unusual thing, I love to make bread pudding with our bread, either our cinnamon raisin bread, or actually I've used our potato bread and even our whole wheat bread also. I love making either like an egg casserole with it or like a French toast with it. I think French toast casserole, like a bread pudding.
Yeah, bread pudding is actually one of my favorite desserts, so I will be making that soon.
Yeah, and you can do all different kinds of sauces with it, a rum sauce or a vanilla sauce or something. Oh, yummy.
I love that. Julie, thank you so much. I'm actually headed to Tulsa, Oklahoma this weekend to visit my father-in-law, and we're having a big barbecue for Memorial Day on Sunday. So you better believe which buns I'll be buying at the store.
I hope so. It'll be fantastic.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I feel like I knew a lot about Martins, but I learned an incredible amount more, and I'm super excited for this episode already.
Yeah, good. Well, this was fun, and it's always fun chatting with you, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to share a little bit more about who we are.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Have a good day and a good weekend.
Thanks. You too. Happy Memorial Day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this Fifth Wednesday episode. To learn more about Martin's famous potato rolls, visit their website at potatorolls.com or follow them on social media at Potato Rolls. Martins, we thank you. This episode was produced by me along with Ian Cohen, Sean Petrosian, and Joel Yeaton. We'll be back next week with our regularly scheduled episodes. You can find me and keep up to date with this podcast across all social media platforms at On Cappy's Plate or go to BeyondThePlatePodcast.com. If you would please rate, review, and or subscribe to this podcast on your listening site of choice, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, whichever. Thank you for listening to Beyond the Plate. I'm Cappy, and remember, there are never too many cooks in the kitchen.